Hello, everybody. You are listening to the Chaos and Shadow podcast. My name is Kyle, and I'm joined here by my co-host, Pagan. Pagan, how are you today?
I am doing very well. How are you?
Very good, thank you. We are sitting down with author Katrina Rasbold. She wrote Uncrossing, Identify, Cleanse, and Heal from Hexes, Curses, and Psychic Attacks. We were sent this beautiful book by our friends over at Llewellyn, and I have just been loving the read-through. Katrina, welcome to the chat tonight. How are you?
Thank you so much. I am doing great. So thrilled to be here. Thank you.
It is a fantastic week to be sitting down and talking about uncrossing, talking about negative energy, hexes, psychic attacks. And personally, one of my favorites from this book is that self-talk, self-crossing aspect to it. I know a lot of our audience really resonates with that. We're a group of people that like to put our witchy and our energetic side forward, but we can hold ourselves back quite a bit. And I didn't think even of how much until I got into your book. So before we dive deep on that subject alone, can we hear a little bit about your background? What got you into the authoring scene, and how did that go for you, Katrina?
Well, and I'm just, let me say, I'm absolutely thrilled to be able to give you a huge closet of anxieties to take into the holiday. So
Yes.
You know, we are coming up on that time where we're going to be surrounded by our families and so much negative energy. So it can be really great to explore how that's going to impact us. I started as a writer when I was a child, and I actually just had a thing. I'm sure it was a fishing expedition on Facebook where it said, if you were right now doing what you wanted to do as a child, what would that be? And it was be a writer, because that's what I always wanted. I started writing books in grade school about my my co-students, and they lived in fear of me. It was the only way I had any kind of power in the school, was they knew they were going to get written as some horrible creature in my book if they didn't treat me well. And so that was really when I discovered the power of writing. And I always wanted to do it. And I wrote a few portions of books over my life. I'm a very old woman now. I'm 60. And when I guess it was around 2013, it was the December 2012, I believe it was, that I really got fed up with myself for coming to a place where I wanted to be a writer for so long and had written so many things and put them aside, and I would bring them back and read it and say, oh, this is really good. I can really do something with this 6 months later, or pulling out and saying, oh, this is really crap. I'm never going to be a writer. I'm going to die unfulfilled. And so what I did in December 2012, because I was frustrated with myself, is I booked an author appearance for a festival in June 2013 for a book I didn't have and had not written. And so I wrote this promo and said, I have this great book. It's on the properties of magical energy. It's on how we can speed up and slow down the energy that we're putting into our spell work and putting into our world. It's what screws it up. What is going to be the downfall? Where do spells go to die? I'm excited to share this book for you. It's called Energy Magic. And can I come speak at your festival? They said, oh my gosh, yes, please. We really want to do that. Thankfully, they did not ask for a copy of the book, because it wasn't written. Not one sentence of this book was written. And I knew that because I'm a Virgo, that was going to be motivating enough to me that I was going to write that book by the time that event happened in June. And by the time June happened, I had written 3 books.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
And that year alone, I published 13 books. And never duplicated that feat ever again. Right now, I have been constipated with the 6th book of my 8-book fiction series for over a year. So I'm trying to get that one done now. So being a writer is such a blessing, such a curse, and it's absolutely everything I ever wanted it to be.
Oh,
I completely feel that pain. I have been there with that whole being stuck. I can totally understand that writer constipation. I'm there with a book series myself, so I feel the pain.
This one was due out in December, last
okay.
December. Yeah. I've got the people caught up in this fiction, this series called Daughters of Avalon, and they're waiting for this book, and they're still waiting, and they're going to wait a little bit longer. They're going to straight out George R.R. Martin this stuff. I'm going to die before it's done.
Oh no!
My
I
gosh!
just don't have HBO to come in and fix it for me.
Yeah, right. Oh, get those writers involved there. Oh my
Right.
Well, Katrina, your series, I guess the whole litany of your work, looking at just your Amazon page that I have up in front of me, is packed with so many different topics. I mean, you've written about tarot, Crossroads of Conjure. I mean, you've covered such a wonderful magical ground. I know our audience is just super excited to always try new things. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that. I mean, because back of Uncrossing says spiritual healer, root worker, tarotologist, teacher. How do you approach this wide variety of subjects and go about putting that pen to paper or brain to paper?
I only write about topics I love, and that's because I only participate in magical practice that I love.
Oh, I like
and that keeps it safe for me. It's really kind of a cop-out. But I mean, I'm not going to write an authoritarian book on Enochian magic because I can barely say the word. So, it's not my jam. So I tend to write about the things I do in everyday life. I'm one of those really lucky people that somehow got to the place in life where witchcraft is my day job. That's what I do. It's my day job. It's my side hustle. It's everything that I do, except when I'm talking to you folks. And so for me, I'm writing about my day-to-day life. When I'm writing that Uncrossing book, it's because I spend my entire day taking this junk off of people and dealing with it every day. It's not a speculative thing. It's not, oh, I suspect that this would happen or that would happen. It's, hey, this is what happened when so-and-so had a family curse, or so-and-so, did things to trip themselves up. I mean, that's all from experience, because it's what I do. And I love it and I hate it. I hate that I have to do it. I wish people didn't get themselves all bundled up, but there's a reason I've got a healer, because I'm going to do it as well.
Well said. Ooh, I mean, that's a huge part of it. And getting into this book, I was someone that didn't think too much about hexes, curses, and psychic attacks, going right off the title. Didn't think too much about those on the regular, because I'm someone that's just getting into witchcraft and spellcraft in general, just in the last, let's say, year and a half, or since the pandemic started. And I kind of passed it by, not spending too much time thinking about it. But in reading the first half of the book alone, talks heavily about the different varieties of attacks. Mm-hmm. I mentioned right when we were introing you that I thought self-crossing was a really interesting one, where we're sitting there and talking down to ourselves, saying what we can't do, and how that actually is kind of a real energy manifestation that then clings on to you and does drag you down a bit like an anchor. Do you have thoughts on that for people in this especially weird spot in the world where we're all trapped inside for the most part and kind of bouncing off the walls?
I do. And I'm going to try to be classy and not describe that with swearing.
You are okay for that here. Do not worry.
Yeah, you can swear. Yeah, it's all good.
Should have cleared that in pre-production. Anyway, the thing is that people are constantly jacking themselves up. And most of the people that I get coming in talking to me about someone's thrown a curse on me, someone's sent energy to me, we can sit and track this to decisions they made, choices they made that created this situation. And the last thing anybody wants when they get to such a low point in their life that they're going to come to a witch to help them out is accountability. They don't want that. Mm-hmm. And when I've mentioned in the book that when I was a baby witch and was just getting started in Wicca, which is my gateway drug to everything that I do now, I didn't want to believe and just didn't stop to think that there were people that would actually purposely curse each other. And it turns out that that's most witches. You want to think that everybody's all goodness and light and threefold law and shit like that. Yes. And they just are not. They're more the people doing the ugly cry, going up, stirring the cauldron, going, I want you to kill him. So, yeah, people are assholes, man. And that's one thing that my craft has taught me that I never wanted to learn. I always was one of these Pollyanna, see the girl and good in everybody sort of people. It just ain't that way.
Nope. It is definitely not that way. And, you know, as a witch, one of my favorite movies is Practical Magic. I mean, why can't it be? Because of course it fits so well. But, you know, the scene where the woman comes to them and is like, I need him to love me and I need him to do this. And it's like, careful what you wish for.
Right.
And you don't realize how much, you said it so well in your book, that words have so much power and our thoughts and our intentions have so much power behind them. And that's why our spells work, because without that, our spells do nothing. They're just empty words. But it's so much that I didn't even think about it. Like road rage, you mentioned it in your book, that you're sending out that energy with road rage. And it's like, oh, whoops. Oops.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And we do that. We do that. And it's also things like going to Thanksgiving.
Yes.
And you've got that one sister, that one auntie, you know, who's gonna start running her mouth, and you're gonna sit there and just stare like hate magic at her nonstop. And it's not that it's not deserved, it's just that you gotta own that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And people don't want to accept responsibility for that, but they don't get that when you accept responsibility for what you put out there into the world, you accept your power of what you put out there in the world. And that's so important, is that's part of actualizing as a witch, is that you are on top of where your power's going.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the people that I had in my mind when I was writing Uncrossing, they're out there willy-nilly just flinging their energy around everywhere, which means not only that they're a baby with a gun, it also means they have their energy in reserve to effectively do the stuff they do want to do. And that's most witches.
Yes.
It's a shame.
Go ahead. No,
Kyle.
you, Pagan. You.
I was gonna say that it's very interesting to look at hexes versus protection magic, because in our household, we're very much of the mindset that protection magic can be just as harmful as it can be hexing. So you can hex wonderfully by wishing, you know, everyone else around you to have beautiful lives. And the person that you don't want to have a beautiful life, you're just like, yeah, I'm just gonna not pay attention to you. Not you. You're not in this picture. Everybody else is. But you can also wish that everyone else has great health. Or you can even say, I want to protect you to have a long life while you're serving your terms in prison.
Oh.
And that is just as much of a hex as it is protection. So that's one of those things that I really resonated with your book, that you really talked about the nitty gritty of all of the aspects of every action that we take as humans. But the really cool thing was that you're just like, we shouldn't live in fear of this, but we should be mindful of it. And it was such a great message. It really was.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And you know, one of the things I really try to get across to my students is that magic is not a place of fear. Fear does not have a place in magic. That is where magic goes to die. Fear and doubt and ego are the three things that will kill magic faster than anything. But there is a place for caution and for reasonable respect of your own energy and the external energies you're working with. And I tend to lean a little more toward the vicious than you do. I will specifically be like, no, asshole, you're going in the mirror box.
Oh, no, we believe in that
too. In you go, my little friend.
I love it.
As I guess we could say the baby witch of the group here, the one that started practicing the most recently, Katrina, what you said about people throwing their energy around willy-nilly, but also preaching at the same time the word of restraint, trying to be the authority figures. That is something that I think has really honed where our show has gone in inviting guests on, and specifically why we wanted to have you here, because I so resonated with how you approach that in the book and everything that you just addressed to Pagan there. That wonderfully summarizes why we wanted to have you by, was that you're calling out some of these authorities and just kind of temples of grandeur, people saying, oh, don't use your magic that way, but then they go and do the same thing. They're throwing hexes, they're throwing spells. And the hypocrisy of it is what I love to call out. Kind of anywhere I go, that's what I enjoy. So I thought in here, owning up to it, telling people that they are responsible for what they're throwing out there, it's what people need to hear. So I'm glad this book puts that front and center.
Well, and like I was saying, that also puts them in direct contact with their power, which is usually what most practitioners want. And, I started out as a Wiccan determined I was going to fling lightning bolts out my fingertips and, light candles, just thinking about it and things like that. And sure, you could probably do that with enough practice, but I got a life to live out here. And, it's when it comes to it, my take on magic is it's all comes down to creating the quality of life that you want to live, whatever that looks like. And unfortunately, a lot of the people that I encounter are trying to do that through changing other people. Most of the spell work I get commissioned to do is about making other people feel or act a specific way that my client wants them to feel or act. And that cripples me. It absolutely hobbles me in trying to help them. Because if I can work on them, I've got a willing participant right in front of me who's receiving my energy, excited to have it, and we can work together to create that outcome that they want. But as soon as they start saying, I need my ex to come back to me, I need my boss to give me a promotion, I need this person to sell me a house, all of a sudden I'm having to work on somebody who doesn't know I'm there, isn't even in the conversation. And there are resistances to that slow me down. So it's not that it can't be done. Sure, it can be done. We've been doing it for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years now. But it's easier if you're working on the client themselves to create behaviors in them that will draw in love, to create energy around them that will engender a promotion or a higher paying job. But nobody wants to go that route. They all want to fix the other person so that they don't have to do any of the work.
Right. So I have a question kind of following up with that. Do you ever, in working with your clients, do you ever, tell people, no, this is going to not work out in your favor. This is actually going to be more harmful to you and your situation. Yes, this could come out, but you may end up having to pay a higher price, karmatically, or anything like that. Do you, I think that's my question. So,
well, a couple of things to unpack there. One is that I don't work with karma. It's not in my my witch canon, so to speak. For me, what comes back to us or what affects us, if we're looking at a backlash or something along those lines, comes down specifically to whether or not that person in there somewhere knows that they're doing something wrong. If they do, they're going to get fire hosed with crap. I mean, it's going to come back then. If they know that they're doing something wrong, they ought not be doing that.
Right.
Now, I do a little bit differently than what you described. I am very forthright with my clients. I will tell them straight up, what you are asking right now is not likely to work. Here's why. It's not likely to work because we're having to take an extreme amount of energy to get back your ex when you cheated on them and they're angry with you and it's been 10 years and they're married to somebody else and have kids with them and they're happy. Me being able to overcome that level of resistance to get that person to come back with you is likely not going to happen, but I will take your money and try. Because, I don't do breakup magic and I don't do magic because it's going to harm other people. Those are two things that I don't do for clients. But I'm saying it as an example, I will tell them this is going to take a lot. This is going to be a huge, you're not going to do this with one candle because of the amount of energy that has to be generated. And they just, a lot of them want to try, but I'll let them know right up front. I'm not one of these witches that'll just say, oh yes, we can do this, give me 6 weeks. No, we're going to do this. It's going to settle in, buckle up. It's going to be a long time.
I think that was a wonderful part of Uncrossing alone, is that for people that are just getting to witchcraft, it does serve as a little bit of an ethics guide in the front, in the way that I synergize with, in drawing those lines between what's going to affect somebody else. So when you're working on yourself, it really puts into perspective where the line ends for you and where it starts for them. Like you're saying, you build a beautiful image there of who is that ex that has that marriage, the kids, the smiles, like everything is good for them. And I think too often the person, I'm assuming the people that come to you, but the people we see online all the time looking at it from a egocentric stance where they are have lost something, they're all that matters, and that the other is almost a mannequin of sorts, that they don't have a life of their own outside. I think when people were picking up those witchcraft books for the first time, that's something that is sometimes overlooked in a big way, is where should you be placing your energy and how should you be using it towards the people that you love now or have loved.
Yes.
You're absolutely right. And, people tend to start thinking about the other people in the equation of spell work as being collateral damage.
Yeah.
And even when we are using, for instance, a poppet to influence somebody, one of the hallmarks of a well-made poppet is that it will have a heart on the outside. And that is to remind you, this is a person. This is a person with feelings that you're working on. And we inconvenience people with our magic all the time. We can talk all the harms done stuff that you want to talk. But the fact is that when you program that you're going to have a parking spot that's convenient to you when you go to Walmart, you may have just blocked a person who's 9 months pregnant from that parking spot, and they've got to walk all the way across from the end of the row. We harm people all the time with magic. And like Pagan was saying before, we can't hit this point of analysis as paralysis where we're doing magic and we're overthinking it to the extreme. You just got to get in there and own it and do it and become part of that force of nature in the world that's creating outcomes. And sometimes you're going to hit a time where that outcome isn't actually what you wanted. And sometimes, the Lord loves drunks and little children and dumbass witches, because sometimes we're in there, please, my ex-husband or my husband's leaving me. Please, please don't let him go. And the universe is like, oh, child, no, we got plans for you. We got to get this guy out of the way. So you never know. Sometimes the answer is just going to be no. You sit here and do spell work all day long and it's just no. And sometimes it's, hey, no, we'll give it to you. Watch what happens next. Ha, ha, ha. So, yeah.
I think that's spectacular. And I love that you kind of mentioned that sometimes the universe has to throw you a curveball that looks really bad, but it's something that's like, no. We have to get the bad out of the way. This is the bad that we're moving out of your way so you can have the good, so your spell can come true. But without that, your spell, if you tried to keep this is not going to work. Stop fighting it and let it happen.
Interesting you said that. Here's my latest favorite metaphor for that. 3 months ago, on August 17th, my house burnt to the ground.
Oh my God.
In the Caldor fire. My husband and I lived there for 17 years, raised our children there. We lost everything. We could not get into our car at last minute's notice. And I mean to the ground. And FEMA has since come in and literally bulldozed 17 years of my life away so that ground looks like nobody ever lived there. The house I raised my babies in, who are now adults, gone to the ground. And I want you to really, we can sit here and go, oh my God, that hurts so bad. That's terrible. We can think about the treasure house of witchy shit that I lost. We're talking thousands, literally thousands of witch books, a lot of which were out of print. We're talking, my house looked like the Museum of Witchcraft. And I mean, come on, I own a metaphysical store,
Yeah.
and my house had more stuff in it than the metaphysical store. Gone. Just, it's not even that somebody came in, violated, and took it. It just does not exist on this earth anymore. And, you know, my mother's dishes, my dad brought over from Holland in 1958, my mom's class ring, all this stuff just gone. So anyway, we can sit here and shed a tear for that. But watch this. When my last child graduated high school, went through a little bit of college, and moved out on his own, it was 1 month to the day before my house burned. The last child, I have 6 kids. And that was the last one, adult, out on his own, being successful. And my husband talked to me about the idea of moving off the mountain. We lived on this mountain. We got freaking 15 feet of snow every year. We hated battling the snow, hated driving that. We lived an hour from where our shop was. We lived a half hour from a gallon of milk. I mean, we were in the boondocks. My husband's like, well, maybe we should leave. Maybe we should go do something. I'm like, get ready for this, witches across the world. I don't want to move all this shit.
The universe moved it for you by destroying it.
So my point is, ow, freaking ow, that hurt. But I got put exactly where I needed to be. I now live in a rented house 8 minutes from my shop. Mm-hmm. I now don't have a lot of stuff encumbering me. I could pack up my house in one of the smallest U-Hauls and move away if I wanted to. So that's what I'm saying, is that sometimes the universe hurts you badly to get you to where you need to be. And we don't want to think about that because we are privileged people.
Yes.
That story rings so true. That is a lot of the reason that Pagan and I are here. Is during the pandemic, I got slapped by the universe pretty hard in a way that I am, in hindsight, very thankful for, because it put me in this position where we get to speak to great people like you as a job, is to sit there and just become entrenched in the witchcraft and learn so many things. And it's funny that I was sort of having that conversation with the universe, much to what you had said about, I didn't think it was my time to jump or anything like that. And well, it just told me it was at a certain time. So last summer we were pushed together in this way. But I am so thankful, because I mean, I say that a lot, that we wouldn't be here having these conversations and enlightening other folks and showing people new avenues of energy work and just the phenomena as a whole. So like you said, Katrina, the universe has a magical way of slapping you right where you need to be.
Yes.
Maybe watch the words
absolutely.
we use.
You know, no matter how old we are, how smart we are, how enlightened we are, how rich we are never anything except a little scared bird on the edge of the nest. And the universe is a big, angry, overextended mother bird behind us who is going to kick our ass out of that nest.
Oh my gosh.
That's just it, you know.
True.
When we and humans do not ever make a move or a significant change unless there is pain involved. When things are great, we're not going to upset the status quo. We're going to sit carefully and try to preserve this sacred moment where everything's okay. Yeah. The universe has to hurt us to get us to do anything.
Yes, and it sucks every time.
Yeah.
Right?
Every time.
Cannot refute it in the least, because I mean, that is how I am most movable, most pliable. So, Katrina, with that kind of idea in mind, we wanted to talk to folks about, or to talk to you and educate folks out there about some methods to help negate some of these negative energies and such around this holiday season, around family and around other things. So I was wondering if we could get you to give a little bit of practical advice to folks out there, especially this week. You know, this episode is going to come out the day before Thanksgiving. So to folks who are feeling like they're maybe shoved together with family members who are grating on them or otherwise wearing down their energy barrier, what would you kind of say to them? What might your advice be?
I got you. Now, here's the number one thing people refuse to do to protect themselves in these difficult family situations. We have a lot of people all across America who are going to spend Thursday with their abusers.
Yeah.
They're going to spend Thursday with people that created lifelong damage to them. I'm sorry. Here, let me scoot over a little bit. My dog's having a party behind me. Anyway, they've had lifelong damage from somebody in their family, and they are still going to sit and have this meal with them on Thursday and give thanks.
Yeah.
Oh, we're not just going to have a meal. We're going to give thanks with this person. We're going to pray with this person. We're going to spend time with this person. And the number one thing I can give to you, more mundane than magical, as far as managing that, and the magic will come too. But before that is really simple. It's 2 words, darling. Don't go.
I love that.
Don't go. I talked a student of mine through this recently, and she's a badass. I mean, this is a fierce student who's one of my master healer class now. And she's talking to me, and she said, I've got this family thing coming up. My family and I don't get along. When I came out, they were horrible to me. They can't manage who I am. But I have to go because my kids want to go. And their kids are teenagers. They're not little babies. They're teenagers. And I said, okay, well, what's your situation with your ex-husband? And she says, oh, we're on good terms, and he'll be going too. He's going to go because he got close to them when we were together. So he'll go, and I'll go, and it'll make it a little easier that he's there. And I was like, well, back up. Send the kids with your ex and don't go. And she said, oh, they're going to talk about me like a dog if I don't go. And I'm like, from what you described, they're going to talk about you like a dog if you do go. So find something you love to do, send your kids on with the ex, and spend the day doing something you love to do. And she looked at me like that had never dawned on her, that you could possibly just not go. And so she didn't go, and she had an amazing day, and nobody really blinked that she wasn't there. And the reason people get locked into these horrible situations is, number one, they're afraid some favorite parent is going to die and they're never going to have another Thanksgiving with them, or they're afraid of how they're going to be perceived by the family if they don't go. And life is too short for those things. You can make inroads and memories with those people at a different time. You do not have to be around your creepy Uncle Bob just to celebrate and be close to somebody. And Christmas is coming too. Y'all are going to jack that up as well. You are. So stop it. Just have the life you want to have. One of my own kids, I got 6 kids, and one of them isn't going to be at my table on Thursday because they don't get along with one of the other kids because they want some distance from me right now. That's cool. I admire that they're doing that and protecting themselves. I'm grateful I raised kids that are comfortable doing that. But that's the first thing. Why are you going to these events that are going to be a horrible, traumatic experience with you just to choke down some dry turkey and eat some jellied cranberry crap? That's the first thing. The next thing is, if despite your better judgment and mine, you have decided to continue and to go, you have to look into how much power you're giving these people. And that involves some first, a good self-audit and some shielding. So what you've got to say is, they've taken so much away from me. They've inflicted so much pain and damage on me. I am not going to give them the power to harm me anymore. And just put up the shields. You imagine that you are trolling around this Thanksgiving dinner table in a hamster ball, or that you've got on a shield of mirrors, or an armor of mirrors, or whatever you want to come up with that just reflects energy out. The problem is, if you're shielding at the Thanksgiving table, you aren't just shielding from one person. You're shielding from everybody. Your energy isn't becoming a part of that celebration. But you can absolutely take away that person's power, and just with the idea, the mantra of, you can't hurt me anymore. You cannot hurt me. But again, I come back to the idea of, don't even put yourself in that position to have to do that.
I love that you say it that way, Katrina, because that's something I personally have a lot of experience with in my family. I was the guy growing up that when I became a teenager, I started asking the questions of, if you don't like hanging out with those family members' parents, why are we going into these situations? And it was very much a tradition thing. It was very much a I'm expected to appear thing. But here you are having a lot of emotional baggage insert into my life. As Kyle's saying this, as the son, I would pick up all that baggage from parents dreading and fretting and not wanting to go and all that. So as an adult, I don't make a ton of appearances at events because, well, they're just not my scene. And much to what you said, I'm going to go and find time with you anyway to hang out and share love in a way that matters to us. Like you doubly said, I mean, we're talking at these holidays of giving thanks. It is that time of year we're all together and supposed to share in some sort of excitement, optimism, and love. But these are, in cases, real abusers, real trauma that's there. And my heart goes out to anyone that is forced into those situations. So I think what I really want to resonate to our audience is take that power back of not going, because that's huge on its own.
Absolutely. And you know what, this is one of the hardest words that we have to embrace as adults, that I know people that are in their 80s that have still not really resonated with this word, and that's choice. You always have a choice. And everybody who ends up on my couch to talk to me about, for an intake about what spell work we're going to do, what cleansings we're going to do, you know, they don't want to hear about the fact that they have a choice. And what they will always say to me, the words will fly out. I can set my watch waiting for it to come out. I don't have a choice. Yeah, you really do. We've been married for 30 years. I can't leave. Yeah. Surprise.
Huge.
Yeah, you can. You can leave. You know, this is my mom. Okay, but she's toxic.
Amen.
You know, just because she abused you for 50 years and now, you know, she needs care, and you're going to spend the next 10 years of your life, you know, taking care of her because she's bedridden. Why? So that you can feel some kind of way, so that you think that you can get some kind of redemption from her at the last breath and moment. You know, if through your childhood, if through your adulthood, you didn't get what you needed from your parents, you aren't going to get it when they're dying. And you're not going to get it at the Thanksgiving table. You're going to get more of the same. You know, that's what is the definition of insanity, is doing the same things over and over, expecting a different result. It's going to be exactly like you think it was going to be. I had one woman tell me, well, my life isn't always horrible. Like, that's the best you got? Is that your life isn't always horrible? That's your big ambition here?
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
And don't go to the freaking Thanksgiving dinner. Don't go to mom's birthday. Don't go to Christmas if there's going to be damage done to you. Send flowers. You know, send an edible arrangement. You know, meet with your parents the next day. Tell them how much you love them. Give them, you know, take them out to dinner for a change. But you know what else you might do? Everybody might be sitting there talking about what asshole Kyle is for not going to Thanksgiving, but there might be some cousin who's struggling, who says, I'm not coming next year. If Kyle can do it, I can do it.
That's a really wonderful way to think about it as well, is that
is a good way to think about it.
Your show of strength might help liberate some other people. And I don't know if it was specific for me growing up in the 90s. I grew up with a really great group of friends here, but I will say a lot of people that I grew up with through high school to college and beyond, I noticed a strong aversion to claiming their own space and their own time on top of that. For some reason, not such a big thing. Like, that didn't hit me for whatever particular reason, potentially some of the folks that helped raise me. But that was something I remember having conversations with friends, is you don't need to go. You don't need to put yourself in harm's way, whether it's tradition or kind of that internal structure we give ourselves. You do have that power of choice and should exercise that. I think, Katrina, that's a lot of magic right there, as I see it, is your choice of where to put your your time, your physical space, that is what's going to create that reality around you.
And more importantly, your energy. How much energy is it going to drain away from you to have to keep shields up, to have to talk yourself up to even get to this place? When you can go see the new Ghostbusters movie instead.
Yeah.
You know, you can invite a bunch of your friends, I don't know, who actually do like you over to have Thanksgiving with you.
Yep.
And I really don't think, if we're going to, we absolutely know that the first Thanksgiving was likely not as it was described to us in primary school.
Yes.
So Thanksgiving's pretty much a freaking lie anyway.
Pagan was just bringing this up, Katrina. Yes, we were talking about this. I'm so glad you bridged that on your own.
Yeah. And so we have the need to make it be what we want it to be. And when you're talking about that, people have trouble defending their spaces and creating their spaces, we're at a really pivotal time right now. And for one thing, when we're talking about the 90s, that was a time when the internet was really starting to roll. I mean, the end of the 90s and into the turn of the century, internet became king during that time. It wasn't just little dial-up bulletin boards and things like that. And one of the reasons we have trouble defending our spaces, I think, is because we have so many people jammed up into our spaces because we're in constant contact with people all the time. We're never in our silence. We're never in our own space. We can always just reach over, pick up a phone, and have 1,000 people hear a tweet that we send out. We have this built-in audience. We have this built-in support group, which is fantastic. Let me tell you, I love the internet. Everything about it, for the most part, I love. But it also has its challenges because we are dealing with the hardships and the trials and the sadness and the joys of everybody we know and then some. And another thing that's coming up in this unique time is we have an unprecedented number of people who are able to fully be themselves and express themselves and not have to hide who they are. And having that be your normal life, and then having to go to Thanksgiving and crawl back into that closet and be humiliated.
Yeah.
Whatever your closet was on the inside. For me, it was the witch closet, but we also have the gender closets and the sexuality closets. And so we have this wonderful time where we are encouraging people. Well, nice people are encouraging people to come out and be who they are and to express themselves and fully embrace who they are as it harms none. But they're told you still have to do this thing because history demands it and sentimentality demands it. Tradition demands it. Tradition doesn't demand shit. People do.
Bravo. Well said.
Yeah.
Well said.
This is a great time to take back Thanksgiving, man.
I mean,
the war on Thanksgiving has begun.
I love, the war on Thanksgiving. I mean, seriously, Pagan was just having that conversation on one of our last streams that we did, that Thanksgiving is not in itself a good holiday. As you've said, Katrina, as we're all starting as a culture to recognize more and to good people are recognizing more, good people are amplifying more voices. We see how traumatic these events are for folks, these forced, quote, traditional holidays, these expectations that are just damaging. And I'm really, really glad the conversation went this way in its own, because this is what people really need to hear, as we have many people in our audience that are, like you said, out of the closet in some way, shape, or form. Getting back together, forcing people back into a room with those that have abused them or told them they're not who they want to be or anything like that. So powerful. It's so traumatizing to folks. Like, that's just such a potentially damaging time. So like you said, step into that power, take back your space and your boundaries. If you know being near your family at this time of year is going to hurt you, don't put yourself in that position. You're worth so much more than that.
Well, I'm cooking on Thursday, and Pagan and Kyle, you can come sit at my table.
Oh,
thank you.
I will cook you right up. And I've got 4 of my 6 kids and their significant others coming. And so it'll be a nice day. I'm excited for it but that's also because we turned Thanksgiving into what we wanted it to be,
Mhm.
you know. And we will be honoring the changes in our families. My youngest son has a new partner. My the next son up just met his partner in person that he's known on the internet for a year. They've been together for a year. They finally met in person because the UK borders open, and they came over. And so he's with a person who's non-binary. My daughter is with a trans woman. My next son up, no, skip one. The second son, I have a granddaughter who I thought for 16 years was my grandson until I met my beautiful granddaughter.
I love
So
this.
there's this, and you know, our family is not one to say, well, we don't have that at our Thanksgiving. You know, you've got to conform. No, bring your beautiful self.
I love it. I love it so much.
Turkey. Yeah.
Eat some
I love
damn
it.
turkey. That's it.
Eat some damn turkey. And spiral ham.
And spiral ham, always the ham.
This has been an absolute blast to sit down tonight. Katrina, I love everything you introduced to our audience this evening, and I know they're just going to absolutely adore your body of work out there. Folks,
Yes.
we have primarily been talking tonight about Uncrossing, Identify, Cleanse, and Heal from Hexes, Curses, and Psychic Attacks by Katrina Rasbold. But you have so many more books out there worth checking out. If they found this one interesting, do you have a next book you bounce them to as well? Like if they like Uncrossing, should they also add X, Y, and Z to the cart?
It honestly depends on what you like about Uncrossing. I have a number of books that are in the Bio-Universal Energy series that I wrote with my husband. And that is all about energy movement and how energy affects us, how to best use energy. If they're more drawn to the conjure side of it, I love Crossroads of Conjure. That's one of my favorite books that I've written. And it's more of an anthropological study of conjure in the Deep South and Appalachian Granite Magic, which is what I grew up with, Brujeria, which is what I studied for a very long time. Just, all sorts of different forms of conjure is that one. And that's, my suggestion there. But I really went all over the world with what I wrote. I wrote books about General Hospital, for crying out loud, and spiritual childbirth. Goddess in the Kitchen, which is about kitchen witchery. I tried to write about everything I know. So
I love it.
I do. I love that spirit. That is what we want to see more of. Katrina, thank you so much for taking the time tonight. Everyone out there, you're going to find links in the description below. Katrina, are there any social media sites that you like to use primarily that people should find you on?
You can find me on crossroadsoccult.com. That's my store. And believe me, everything that I do, the store is the hub for it.
Okay.
So that's my primary. I do have a website I don't update called KatrinaRasbold.com. I'll update it if I ever put out another book.
That is fair. Very fair. That is always a big thing. So crossroadsoccult.com, everybody. Go check out Katrina's books. We would love to have you back by in the future, continue these great conversations. I wish you a very happy Thanksgiving. Thank you for speaking to our audience in such a loving way. I know they're going to adore that, and I hope some folks get to listen to this before Thursday. Just take that to heart. Get yourself in a good space for all of this, and we will catch up with everybody very, very soon. Katrina Rasbold, everybody. Thanks so much. Catch up soon. Bye-bye.